Hello, everyone, and welcome to another segment for Trans Awareness Week brought to you by Equality Florida and TransAction Florida. My name is Angelique Godwin, and I am the Director of Transgender Equality with Equality Florida. And we have put together a wonderful panel of transmasculine humans who are going to talk to you about what Trans Awareness Week means to them and share and enlighten some of the things that they're going through as transmasculine people living in Florida and talking about some myths, because as you know, our segments are about breaking the stigma and myths being busted. So we're going to start with an introduction of all of our wonderful guests, starting to the left of me.
I'm Lane. I'm 30 years old. I'm a little bit of a late starter. I've been on T for 6 months now. I've been out as trans for 12 years now and just been scared about stuff.
Oh no,
So,
first of all, it's never too late to start, babes.
it
Never too
never
late.
is. Somebody once said to me, if the excitement outweighs the fear, you're doing the right thing. And that's the words I've kind of lived by. But I'm 30. My name's Lane. I'm a bartender and a sommelier. I don't know. I'm a
That's
cool
it. That's
dude. I'm a cool boy.
it. Thank you for being with us, Lane. Thank you for joining us. I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me.
You're very welcome. Keeping it moving right along, we're going to go with right below Lane. We have Alex.
My name's Alex Romero. I'm a transmasc individual. I go by he, him pronouns. I am the Queer Trans Project's Northeast Florida Field and Relations Fellow, and I've been transitioning for 8, 9 years. I started T in 2016. 1 year after that, I had top surgery. So I've been very fortunate and lucky to have access to resources and have had very accepting people in my life. I've also had not accepting people in my life, but that's where I'm at currently, well, at least when it comes to my transition and also the work that I do.
Thank you for joining the conversation, Alex. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And now this gentleman I've known for quite some time, and I'm happy to have you. We've done quite a few different conversations across different platforms. So I'm super excited to have you on this one. Please introduce yourself.
I'm James Cass, transmasc. I just stepped down as Mr. Trans Florida 2024, literally Sunday, and I've been medically transitioning for going on 13 years. I came out as trans at 17, and I'm 35 now. And I've always said that I've got that bad story that everybody fears, where I lost all my friends and all my family, and literally had to move states to medically transition up in Iowa, and then went back home just to lose them all again. And then down here in Florida, where I found a good little support network here and there. Had some bumps along the road, but it is what it is. And so I'm just out here doing my thing, being me. Don't know anything else.
As you should. It takes some time to find a found family, or it takes some time to find
Yeah.
your a sturdy ground to stand on. But
Right,
I definitely commend you for always having that ability to bounce back and continue to be a role model in the community. So I'm really, really happy you're still here, first and
right.
foremost, and thankful to have you and your voice. And last but definitely not least, this handsome gentleman with the wonderful braid down that I didn't get to compliment earlier. You would be so kind.
Thank you, Angelique. Hi, everyone. My name is Cielo Sansere. I am 26 years old now. I am non-binary transmasculine, and I wear many different hats. I'm the executive director and the founder of the Queer Trans Project. I'm the communications associate for Equality Florida. I'm just an overall badass person. I'm a cat mom of 4 cats, and that's a little bit about me. Thank
I
you so
love
much.
that. You definitely wear many hats, but it's dope, and I love that about you. And this is a great panel because you guys are all really well-rounded. You represent various corners and various places. There's a lot of intersectionality from what I'm hearing. So I definitely want to dive into our first major question, which is the reason why we're all here, Trans Awareness Week. So as we've been exploring it, we've been asking all of our panelists to tell us, what does Trans Awareness Week mean to you? And you can say that in any light that you see fit. And I'm actually gonna put you back on the blast. Cielo, I'm gonna have you go first.
So, trans awareness to me means just a symbol of where we've come from the past and where we are in the present and where we're going to be in the future. I think it's just amazing that we have an entire month of November to just bring awareness to who we are. And we can do that in so many different ways. You can have a candlelight vigil, or you can have a party to celebrate your trans identity. You can do all of the above. It's just really, really amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's grown so much into something that's really just awesome to see, because you're right, the versatility of this week is unlimited. There's so many different various ways you can celebrate or take part in it. And so we're doing our part here and now. And I'm so excited to have you guys kind of expand on that. Up next, we have James.
Gotcha. Actually, this is my first time participating in Trans Awareness Week, believe it or not. So, newbie here, rookie at it. I know the month of November, we have the whole month, and so I've always been like, well, it's more than just a month or a day here and there. It's 365 because I'm always me. Can't change that. And just the awareness of it is, especially with what's going on right now, we really need to be on top of it, make sure that our trans siblings are doing okay mentally, emotionally, physically. There's such a large statistic right now that are homeless without shelter alone that it's ridiculous. So the awareness, and we really need to get out and check on each other, would be what it mean to me.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's good. I think there's so many people who are probably going to start participating this week, or taking a bigger step, or having a bigger piece in action for this week, considering everything that's going on in the world right now, especially here in Florida. So thank you. And as you may not, like you said, 365 all year round. I know you do the work probably every week, but this week. So I know that it stands to say that it's cool to have you admit that you're a first timer, and your excitement for it. So thank you. Up next, we have Alex.
I was gonna say the same as James. This is my first time participating. Honestly, I'm sort of new to activism a bit. Um, I've been really trying to get involved this year, but Trans Awareness Week means to me, I always forget the exact wording, but it's kind of, at least for me, I know that I'm a very privileged individual when it comes to being trans and everything like that, simply because of just how much luck I've had. So for me, it's personally, it's for about being as visible as I can be, as safely as I can, so that more people know a trans mask person or just a trans person at all, because many people don't know a single person who's trans. The things that they know about trans people come from the media, either from the right or the left, and they're generally just uninformed. They don't know our life experiences. They don't know our daily lives. They don't know our access to healthcare. They just don't know anything about it. So like, personally, for me, Trans Awareness Week means being a conduit to spread awareness and truth about our lived experiences, and that we're not some big scary boogeymen people or whatever you would like to say, that we are just people who just have a slightly different way of feeling comfortable in ourselves and our lives. And besides me trying to be visible, for personally for me, I also believe that it, as James said, that it's definitely about coming together in the community, not only with other trans individuals, but with people in the LGBT community, as well as allies, and just spreading awareness, having conversations, just not being in the dark, not being afraid to have tough conversations.
I agree. And last but not least, definitely want to have Lane.
So Trans Awareness Week means to me three main things. It's about being out and about and not being stealth, and having that level of being proud of who we are and not being apologetic. Because I'm tired of being apologetic. It's garbage. And it's about remembering who came before us and who really paved those paths, the people of color, the trans individuals that came before us, and really taking time to remember them and really reflect on their history. And then it's about education, like building on what Alex said. It's about, even though it shouldn't be our responsibility, it's about educating people. It's about having people know one trans person. Even if it's exhausting to let these people know who we are, to go through progress, to go through everything, to get through my stupid family in Georgia who all voted for Trump. It's about being like, hey, listen, I'm trans, I'm proud, and this is me. Things for me.
No, I love that. No, I love it. It's a very passionate comment from you. I think it's really important that people remember the explanation is in the title, right? It's the Transgender Awareness Week. It's about bringing awareness. I think awareness should be the height of that, and whether that's visibility and in the sense of being a person who's strong enough and confident enough to be out in the public and be a physical, visible example. Or maybe it's just the visibility, knowledge wise, right? You guys were talking about that visibility in education and letting people know that we do exist, that we're not some monolithic being, nor are we some mythological creature, right? It's that idea that we have this ability to exist simply because we're humans and we were made by other humans and we deserve to live and present and be at peace with ourselves and not for some societal standard that was made hundreds of years ago, centuries ago, right? So I think that it's really cool to have that opportunity. And like we said, Trans Awareness Week offers an unlimited potential for how we express ourselves. So whether we're telling our stories or whether somebody is hearing our story for the first time and going to share our story, whether it's written in an article or in a TV series role, the optics of being visible is so much more than just seeing with your eyes. You can hear, you can meet people, you can hug them, you can touch them, and like really have a sense of who they are. Because at the end of the day, that is the reality. We're all human, we all bleed the same. And just like every other gender and race and societal construct of human life forms, we come in various shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds, and there's a lot of room for variation, which we see here with you four. So with that being said, and keying into our next question, we want to know what are some we're aiming to break stigmas, right, and to bust myths. So what are some stigmas that you guys are facing currently in your lives, or that you may have faced previously in your life? Because you might be blessed and not be having no stress. So I'm not going to take that from you. But I want to know, what kind of stigmas are you guys facing or hearing that transmasculine, specifically individuals, are facing? I would love to start with Alex first. We'll go Alex, James, CLO, and then Lane.
So, like, stigmas. I guess it's not really a stigma, but a lot of the time, because I'm a transmasc individual, people, if they don't know me, they assume that I'm straight, and I couldn't be further from the truth. I'm very, very gay. I actually have a fiance and everything that I love very dearly. So that's one thing. I guess people just have assumptions about how trans people have to be, how they transition, what it all entails, because I think people think that even at least cis people, I think they still believe that even if you are trans and they sort of understand that, that is still a very binary process, that not every trans person transitions the same way. They don't all take hormones, they don't all have surgeries, they don't all do this. And it's very nuanced. It's very much to do with what that person wants out of their transition, whether that be to just use gender affirming resources and not medically transition, which I like a lot. I like that we can basically transition however we want, and people don't really understand that it's not binary. It's up to you. We are the. I think one of the greatest things about being trans is that you don't have to put yourself in a box. You can express yourself however way you want to.
I love that. That's actually one we haven't talked about, is the ideology that when you're transitioning and that your attraction will be to the opposite sex of your transition. And I think
Yeah,
that people tend to forget that there's a wide spectrum now of what we can be attracted to and how we can want to pursue our love lives outside of our transitioning. I think that it's a weird thing. It's always used to be there was no in between male and female or female to male. And so now we have the non-binary who walk the line, and we have a lot of people who are, in some cases, we've got, now there's new terms that I love, like blouse. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's like the best thing since sliced bread. We have other people on the other side of the scale who are hyper feminine, but they also prefer to, they don't medically transition all the way. There's a lot of people who walk the line in different ways, and I love
yeah.
that idea that we get to have that conversation to talk about it a little bit more. Just really, I don't think anybody even brings it up, honestly. I think it's mostly because when we transition, we're looking at what we want. We're not worried about society or what our community members or our family are going to be attracted to. We're worried about ourselves. I do want to put in the air, if anybody wants to talk about it later, go back, about the idea that once we start to transition, the freeness of the relief of that allows us to find partners that we really truly connect with. I think that that's something that happens, and it's almost like magic. It's almost something that we never talk about. but I'm just gonna throw that out there for later. We'll come back to it. I promise I have it written down.
You love trans.
And, so next, James, if you'd let us know what's a stigma that you may have faced or you've encountered.
Well, so mine bounces off of what Alex said too, because mine that I've encountered was that before my transition, I liked guys. Just when that's furthest from the truth. I was one of those diehard, lesbians, and then tried to be a straight guy, and that didn't work out because once I started hormones, it was a whole different attraction. And then I felt like, well, I don't want people to judge me, but what's going on between my legs, so why am I judging them? And it actually took me for about 5 years into medically transitioning to be okay with the fact that guys wasn't just for to get my rocks off, because grinder, you just pick up anybody. So it actually took me, 5 years to be okay with and accepting my own sexuality and my orientation afterwards. So it's like that's what I run into. And then another one is that, oh, you're submissive, because I farthest from it. It might play a submissive role, position, and everything, but doesn't mean I'm the submissive one or gonna stay in that
Sorry, I was breaking up a
dynamic.
little bit, so I just want to clarify. You were saying that the ideology of you being submissive musician.
Right.
Yeah.
Because so working in the adult film industry, they portray trans men as submissive bottoms.
Yes. Oh, I get
You
you. I
know,
get you.
and just because you're in the bottom position doesn't mean you're the submissive one. And I've come across a lot of trans guys that experience that too when it comes to finding, linking up with someone as well, that they get that, oh, you're just going to be my little fill in the blank for that word, and it's the furthest thing from it. So that's what I encounter.
I really think that we should step away from those ideologies that people have about who does what, where, when, and why. I think it's
Right.
everybody has their own thing. I know a lot of men who are submissive in the bedroom with their women, so it doesn't matter. I don't think it should matter, but it's definitely something worth talking about because that kind of expectation put on people is wild.
Well, and they're seeing it in porn, and that's all I get of trans guys when those that have a thing
Yeah.
for us. And there's a few hit and miss there that you'll see that the roles are reversed, but it's very rare.
I think that brings up the other ideology of bottom surgery for trans men with phalloplasty. I've noticed that almost every trans man I've followed who has gotten phalloplasty and has reached the end of the line has somehow jumped into porn or does some kind of OnlyFans or something like that. I think that
They paid money for it. So.
no, I love it. I love that. Keeping the circle moving right along, I want to bring up CLO if you would.
So the stigma for me personally, as a non-binary person, it's people assuming that I'm a man since I've transitioned. Even people I've known for years, they'll think, oh, they hear that I've transitioned from a woman and now I'm a man. And it's just that binary thinking. And that's even in people who are in our community who are trans as well. It's just automatically thinking that someone is a man. And it's just something that we all have to work through. To me personally, in the beginning of my transition, it used to irk me. But now I'm at a point where I know what my identity is. And this is especially true when I'm out in public because every day I get misgendered regardless of what people think I am because they never think non-binary. They either think I'm a woman or a man. And again, that used to bother me, but I'm at a point where I'm like, well, they don't know what I am, so they're going to use both. So I guess in a way, it's like negating it and affirming me because you don't know what the hell I am. And it goes back to the airport thing. They'll pat me down because there's a heat sensor in that area, but then they ask me who I want to pat me down, like a man or a woman. And I'm just like, well, if you don't know, I guess I'll choose. So that's the main stigma, I guess, that I have in my personal life. The other stigma is because I am transmasculine, people would assume I'm very a masculine person. But to me, being transmasculine only means I like to dress in traditional masculine clothing. But I'm the most feminine person that you'll know. So transmasculine to me is just defines the way that my energy and nothing else. That's really it. So yeah, those are my two stigmas.
I think that it's more or less the presentation. I think transmasc is a presentation. I don't think it has anything to do with your actual masculinity. If I may say, because I think looking at this room, to a certain extent, all of you, even though my top two have baby faces and my bottom two have enough facial hair to go work out on a TV screen, right? Like, you could be in TV shows on the bottom, and the two of you up top look like you'd be the high schoolers in the TV show. Like, it's like
Not
the
okay.
dads and the kids, right? I think that there's a level of presentability. It's all about how we present. I think even me saying that I'm trans femme, it's just how I present. I just love the feminine energy as far as an aura goes, as far as dress goes, as far as clothing goes. But baby, I turn tires off of cars in 60 seconds, and I can do my own oil changes, and I do my own home repairs. I don't need a man for none of that. Like, if it's a masculine identifying activity, I can do it. And I don't need a man to come do it for me. 9 out of 10 times, if anybody's going to come do it, it's my mom, but whatever. But that's another story. But I think even in that with you, and knowing you, Cielo, I will be honest, when I met you, we talk about this often. I remember somebody came and told me that you were trans. And I was like, what? I had no idea. And there's a picture, actually, your partner sent me, Alexa sent me, of me and you together at Pride at the Capitol. And I was like, yep. And it was at that moment I realized that I was at the cross line of, I don't know what I'm doing, and I got you fucked up, because I swore in that moment you were 100% like cis man.
You told me that you thought I was a cis gay man, and I'm like,
I thought, because I meet all kinds of people from all walks of life my whole life, and I had never met a trans Black man that looked like you. I've only met gay Black men that look like you. So naturally, if it looks like a duck, it looks like a duck. If it talks like a duck, in my mind, and that's what you said, and I correlate with that ideology in your head, that when you see something that naturally you associate it with something else, you just jump to it. It's not even a question for me. So it's never a question of if you are, if you're not, but it's just a matter of putting you in that realm of, that's what I know, right? And so you didn't break my cycle, and that's why I just took you in and was like, yay, friendship, like, cool beans. And then everybody was like, Cielo's a trans person. I was like, wait, what? I was like, gagged, cracked. I was like, I've been messing. And then they were like, that you're non-binary. And I was like, you mean to tell me I've been dragging his name through the mud like this? I've been messing this up. I was like, oh God. I was like, he's never going to talk to me again, because I just assumed out the gate. And so I think there's a lot of room for that. But that comes with the education, right? That comes with that understanding, and that knowing someone's story and knowing about someone, because that expands your knowledge of the situation and helps you fill in another gap in that line that I was talking about earlier, where it's not just male and female. There's a lot of notches between the two. So you can fall on any one of them. I know, Alex, I saw you raise your hand at one point. I don't know if you were in agreement or...
I'm very much in agreement. I just also wanted to talk about, that's a stigma that I feel like comes up. A lot of cis people and even other trans people expect trans people to look a certain way, and I don't know why that gets put on us so much, simply because everybody looks different. Like, there are so many people in between and so many different, like, how they identify. It's just like, I don't understand what kind of image they have in their head about what a trans person is supposed to look like, but they just never think it could be me. Or I don't understand why everybody is always so surprised. We're not that different from you at all. I don't know what you think a trans person looks like, but we're everywhere. We all look very different. We're everywhere in between. We do not look like just one certain way. I don't know.
I guess mine would be that I'm attracted to trans women, and I get friend zoned a lot because of what I'm lacking here, and everybody doesn't want to take it into consideration just because I can be any size you want me to be, and if you just get out of your mind that, oh, it's fake, I'm not gonna like it, and actually focus on the person, you would get an entirely different experience.
Before we move on into the next part of that, Lane, if you would be so kind as to tell us one stigma that you face or you're maybe familiar with.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really difficult because I am early on in my transition. I've been out as non-binary for, I guess, 12, 13 years, but I just started medically transitioning. And it's really strange in the early times. Everyone and every mask that I work with, and God bless them, they're so kind. But they want to, like, they're like, hey, look at the person at table 64, and be like, oh, that's really cool. This is kind of misogynistic and kind of shitty. And it's a weird period of, you want to fit in with these people and you want to be one of the boys, but it's so uncomfy. It's this bizarre middle ground that you have to get used to. And it's strange. And that's a stigma I wish I could break. The inherent, almost misogynistic tendencies of even people that are trying to do good with you, people who are trying to include you, involve you in. And it's strange and it's weird and I don't like it.
Do you feel like it's more like a personal strange, or is it more of a situational strange? Do you think, I know when I started my transition, I had this weird thing where I didn't feel comfortable with the gays and I didn't feel comfortable with the straights. I often in times waved in and out of where I belonged. I never really felt like I belonged until I reached a point in my transition that was like, good for me. Like when confident.
That's absolutely kind of what it is. But all these people that I'm around are all so well-meaning, but they want to involve you in this weird level of misogyny of what it means to be a guy, and that's not what it means to be a guy. That's not my definition of masculinity. And it's this bizarre tendency, and that's a stigma I want to break, that just because we transition and we choose to live as who we love, who we see ourselves as, it comes with this level of misogyny, and that's not what it is. And I don't know. It's just so strange that people want to, even well-meaning people, want to include you in this bro life, and this bro life is just so strange and so weird. I think that's stigma.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, Alex and Cielo, if you guys can jump in on this. I feel like this, you both are over there in much agreement. So I want to pick your brain and hear what you guys feel about that.
Talking to your earlier point, I have revealed to people that I probably shouldn't have that I was trans, and before they know I'm trans, they treat me a certain way, like, for lack of a better word, like one of the guys. I'm part of the boys club, but as soon as I reveal that I'm trans to certain people who don't know what a trans person is, they turn around and treat me like a completely different person. And they start messing up on pronouns, even though they would have never known this thing about me if I hadn't been brave enough to tell them. And then they get this, I guess they think, they get all turned around in their brain. I don't know. They get discombobulated when I say that. They're like, what? It's really annoying. But to your second point about experiencing that boys club mentality, I've definitely had people talk to me about things that they did not talk to me about before I transitioned. Talking to me about women in ways that I do not agree with, and that made me severely uncomfortable. And I just, in the beginning, I was very scared to even refute what they would say, just because it felt like I hated it, but also it just felt unfortunately so affirming to feel like I was a part of that group, even though it still didn't feel like, it still always feels like, regardless of how far I've come in my transition, for me, I don't really belong in many or any groups, just because of, well, maybe with other trans masc and other trans people, but with other cis men, I have a lot of cis friends. They're all well-meaning, they're nice, but they definitely sometimes do not get it right when it comes to talking about women and being misogynistic and things like that. And if anybody who is my friend sees this on an off chance, you know who you are, or if I don't mean you. So.
No, I think I understand it a little bit more from that perspective for sure. Cielo?
To add onto that, I think especially our trans community is we're so impressionable as we try to find ways to fit into society when we shouldn't be, because the beauty of being trans is being outside the box and finding who you are. But oftentimes we get sucked into trying to be so far out the box that we roll right back into the box, especially like trans masculine individuals, trans men who assume like this misogynistic personality to fit in with society, and then they end up turning against their other trans siblings because they don't act the same way.
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely it's almost a universal topic, but I'm glad to be talking about it from this perspective because I think, right? No, I think that the boys club ideology that I think it's worse for boys than it is for trans women. I know for a fact, like growing up as a gay man, there was a portion of my life where people felt the need that they had to teach me how to do something, or they had to, make me feel like I was a part of the gang. Whereas in girl world, it's not like that. I never had someone be like, oh, it's very fend for yourself. Nobody came and showed me how to put on lipstick or my eyeliner or was like, walk like this. I do find that as a trans individual, people will step in places that they feel like it almost as if you've never had any interaction. You never knew what you were doing. Like they'll tell you how to do something as if you're new to this. You haven't been researching or waiting your whole life. You have no knowledgeability about the gender that you want to be. It's almost frustrating to a certain extent because they say it and you know that they mean well. And I guess that's what you were talking about, Lane. You know that the heart is in the right place, but you're like, this is not how I want to be inducted. This is not how I want to be introduced at all. Let me live, for lack of a better term. I don't know if anybody relates to that as well, but
let me be authentically weird and authentically me.
yeah,
I don't need you to explain to me how to be a man.
Yeah, I think everybody's weird. Everybody should be weird. If you're not weird, that's weird.
Can I add one more thing to that? The points. There's definitely also a racial and ethnic layer to it. Because you can go on any subreddit, you can go on any TikTok about like how to transition, how to pass better. And the one thing that irks me the most is telling someone to cut their hair. You telling a black or Hispanic person to cut their hair when you know how important hair is? What am I do with the freaking I don't even know what y'all like call hairstyles. Like they don't. It's just I don't know. It's just irritating. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just really frustrated because it ties into like there's not one way to transition, and also ties into there's not one way to pass. And there's just people trying to get caught up and trying to be in this boys club that's never going to be there.
And you're absolutely correct. There's absolutely a racial boundary with that. And to pass as a person of color and to pass as somebody who's like me. And to try to do that is absurd. And I found it really weird as I moved on with my transition is the embracing of the femininities, I haven't cut my hair in a year. I love it. And no one should be forced to fit in that dumb little box. The rejection of traditional masculinity and the embracing of the weird world is what I love about being trans.
But I think in speaking to that, there's a lot of this ideology of once again it goes back to the conception of what masculinity is supposed to look like. I don't think there's a gauge on hair length or depth of facial hair or tightness of clothing. I don't think any of that matters when it comes to those roles. And I often at times I want to challenge people to step away from the ideology that there is even roles. There's no such thing as masculine or feminine roles. Everything has a level to it, but it has nothing to do whether you're male or female or masculine or feminine. It's just actions that we take, and only society has put the gender on an action, and that's it. Even in language, like the only time that it happens is in love languages. In love language, we say that because we are softening or we're hardening something, not because it is innately masculine or feminine. I think it's so weird that that has been twisted in an essence. And so that's definitely a misconception or a myth I would wish we could just undo.
I love that. Can I add one more thing? I'm so sorry. I have
No,
so
you're
many.
good. You're good. I love the
think this should be
conversation.
like a 10-hour panel. I swear.
We'll do more.
But when you were talking about nothing is inherently masculine or feminine or man or woman, it's just societal. I heavily vibe with that, and I'll provide 2 examples. So, my most recent experiences, me and my partner went shopping to go to a ball, and we went to Rainbow, which is a women's store, and she was getting clothes for herself, and she was also like, "Well, look around for stuff for you," and I'm like, "We're in a women's store. I'm not gonna find anything that I want." And she was like, Cielo, look at the fucking clothes. Oh, no, she didn't say it like that, but she was like, just look around. You never know what you're going to find. And then I ended up finding an entire outfit that I loved, and it affirmed my identity as like non-binary because it was masculine and feminine at the same time. And I really loved the outfit. And then another example is how I mentioned earlier, where I get misgendered no matter how I'm presenting, especially when I have facial hair. When I have facial hair, I tend to get like she, her, and ma'ams a lot, which is like, bizarre to me. But in the beginning, it used to irk me, and I'd be like, what the hell? That makes no sense. But the deeper I've gotten into like, my understanding of these constraints in society and trans identity is understanding like, actually how beautiful it is for me to have a full face of hair and people think like that I'm a woman. And it just goes to show that no matter how you present, that doesn't define your identity. And it really reminds me of my trans sisters who haven't medically transitioned yet, and they may still have the facial hair and stuff like that. You can gender them correctly because that's a woman with facial hair, and you just think I'm a woman and I have facial hair when I'm not. So like, you can do it. And it also just reminds me of 6 women who have conditions like PCOS, where they get a lot of facial hair. So those are my thoughts.
No, I was going to tap in and say that. I was like, I know so many people in my family with PCOS. I saw women with little light beards and facial hair, and like women with chin hair. As a half Latina, all the women in my family, once you hit the age of 40, everybody's got chin hair. Everybody, they got one or two sitting every time you hug somebody, you see one. But the only difference is we don't call them out. We're not over there being like, Tia, go pull that. Like, it is what it is. You don't want to get hit. It's real. I think there's so many instances or cultural inferences that tell us that this is natural. And so the only thing about it is like, I think I love the ideology that the spirit gets a little lost in the makeup process, right? Very Powerpuff Girls. Somebody put a little bit too much X and not enough sugar and spice in my mix. So I had to go back and make sure that I had enough sugar and spice on the outside to match my insides. Or maybe y'all didn't get enough chemical X in there. Got to make sure you buff up the outside, make it look nice the way you like it. You put a little bit more, put a little bit less, whatever you need, right? I think that the world does that. And we talked about this on previous panels. Men going to the gym and working out. Some go for muscle, some go for lean. Even the way that they eat, right? Women, the same thing. Some want the hourglass shape. Some want to be built and be like Wonder Woman. Some want to look like She-Hulk. That doesn't take away her femininity. It doesn't take away her ability to identify as a woman. Everything else is the perception of another person. And so I implore people to take on the context of that's a you problem, not a me problem. You misgendering me is no longer my problem. It's your problem. It's your inability to see me for who I am or as I present. And it becomes rude when you choose to use it as a weapon. But even then, I hate to be that person who's sticks and stones don't break my bones kind of deal. But you have to, at some point in time, you have to stop letting things like that determine your day or determine how you feel or determine how you move through the rest of your day, right? In a perfect world, we all get the responses that we love and we want. But I watch people in my family, like my mom has a deeper voice, and I would be on the phone with her and people like, sir, and my mom's like, I am not a sir. We'd be in the drive-thru and she'd be cussing somebody out at the KFC because they call her a sir. And she's like, I'm a young woman, my mother, this many, whatever. We get to the window and they're like, I am so sorry. It's what people perceive. And I'm starting to learn as I get deeper into my transition that people's perception of me does not define my knowledge or identity of self. So I think that it's cool. That get me hot. I'm getting excited in it. Like, I'm over here getting pumped up. These are the types of things I love to talk about.
I think this might be a hot take, but I feel exactly how you feel, where like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I feel like there's two sides to it. Words can be hurtful, but I feel like with our younger trans generation, sometimes I guess I feel like, how do I say this? It's been like, taught that words should hurt them. So no matter what someone says to them, they take it to heart. When we should be teaching them that it doesn't matter if someone's in your face calling you like, every word in the book, that shouldn't hurt you. But it's being taught to us that words should hurt you, words should negate your gender identity.
I think that there's a truth to that in the sense that words have weight, and to be dismissive to the weight of words would be to completely send somebody into a gunfight with a knife. I don't think that that's right. I think, like I said, when I was expressing it for myself, I was like, as I've come into my own, as I've learned myself from, I have spent so much time worried about what other people think or worrying about those words that I heard somebody call me or that missed idea, right? Now I start to realize that when people do things like that, it's a lack on their part. It's not a lack on my part. I'm identifying every day as I choose to. I know what I look like before I walk out my door. I'm fully aware of my love handles. I'm aware of my facial hair if I have any. I'm aware of my hairy legs. I'm aware of all of it. I'm aware that I don't got no makeup on today. I don't need you to tell me about my skin. I don't need you to tell me about my hair, that it's nappy, I need a brush. Baby, I knew. When I woke up, I knew. So it's nothing you're going to say to me that I don't already know, right? It's when we're in those moments of weakness, I think as people who are new to it, right? People who are who haven't been slapped with those words, who haven't been slapped with those emotions that come with those words. I think that's something that you can't teach people, unfortunately. I wish that I could sit down and have that conversation, especially with young kids, to let them know that people are going to make fun of you. They're going to try you because they don't understand or because they think it's a fun thing or because they have their own issues and they're not dealing with it. They don't want nobody to notice their flaws, right? So they're calling out yours. I think that it really does resonate that way. But I could tell you about it. It's like being a doctor. I could tell you how to butterfly a vein, how to get in there and draw blood, how to do all these things. But until you're in the moment, until you experience it, you truly don't know what it feels like when you're holding your hand on somebody's heart versus being taught how to hold it. There's so much of that in reality that's relatable to our feelings and our emotions and how we resonate with them. So yeah, I agree 100%. I think there's a duality to that, but I think that people should start to lean into that voice inside your head that it's never going to go away. The voice in your head is louder than any person on the street. That voice that's telling you you are this person, that this is where you belong, that this is how you should look. The voice that tells you, damn, I look good today in the mirror, is the only voice you should hear throughout the day. Because anybody else's idea of what you should wear, oh, you would look nice in a heel. I probably would, but my feet are comfortable right now and they're not going to hurt. So thank you for your opinion. I'll log that in the advice category for later, but I got to keep it moving. Sorry, speaking from a feminine perspective, I know I don't have the masculine is out the window for me these days. I'm sorry. Any other topics or any other comments before we close out, my friends?
No, I'm gonna stop talking because I'm gonna keep talking forever.
No, I love it. I wish you would have been on some of the other panels. We're gonna have to have you back. I think I'm starting to round out an idea here, and I think it's gonna be lovely. But to close out, we'll ask you guys the question we asked James, just real quick. If there was one stigma, hands down, that you've experienced or that you exist in the world, it doesn't even have to be tied to the topics today, but just one in general that really you wish you could just end in a snap, Thanos snap, what would it be? I think for me, I'll speak first on it. As far as the transmasculine community goes, I wish the ideology that trans men want to is like the transition a lie is to be stealth or to hide amongst the men. I think that is such a false idea. I think there are so many loud and proud trans men in the world, and I wish that trans men could just be without being thought of as being the type of people who disappear or the type of people who scream. I think that there's this ideology that most trans men transition and then run away and hide from the community. And I know that that's the furthest thing from the truth. But I think that the representation that we do have in the community shows just how powerful trans men are or transmasculine individuals are. And I wish that there was a more understanding of the transmasc experience in and of itself. I don't think that there's enough conversations being had with them. And I also would like to say, because I always take an opportunity to say this, trans men are disproportionately treated worse on a general basis, I think personally, than trans women. I think that there's a lot of spaces they aren't brought to. There's a lot of tables and they're not involved in enough conversations when talking about the trans community. Even the news and the press completely ignore their existence in situations like abortion rights and laws and in general for the gay community and or the trans community. I think that it's almost more harmful to ignore the existence than it is to downplay it. So that's just my thing. If I could get rid of that, I would totally just wipe that off the field and make it known that they're a part of every conversation, period. No questions, ifs, ands, or buts.
I guess mine would be that because I really I'm attracted to trans women and I get friends on a lot because of what I'm lacking here, and everybody doesn't want to take it into consideration just because I can be any size you want me to be, and I have found the perfect realistic feeling one. And if you just get out of your mind that, oh, it's fake, I'm not gonna like it, and actually focus on the person, you would get an entirely different experience.
I do think there's a lot of stigma with that. But I also think that there's a duality to that one. We're going to have you back and talk about that because that's one I get in a different way, though. So I definitely want to talk about that because I feel like the same vibe. So definitely, I love that. That's a what I call it. It's like a hot button one. Because that one, I feel like everybody could probably comment on that and go a little deeper. But thank you so much.
I've had my heart broken so much because of that.
I can imagine. I'm so sorry.
I'll have to get back to this again when I'm on an off day.
Preferably. I know. I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us and giving us your time. We appreciate you for being a part of the panel today.
Thank you for having me.
It was great meeting you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, for non-binary and then the transmasc, y'all wanted to do it's pretty much a national community service title with Trans USA pageantry. We do have a mixed division. This year was our first having that, and then we have the Mr. and the Mrs. But we actually have a court this year that is all three are of African descent, and our mix and our miss are also Latina descent as well.
Sweet. Thank you. Shameless plug for Trans USA pageant, correct?
Yeah, Trans USA pageant, national pageantry.
So thank you so much. We appreciate you and your time, and we'll see you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
So speaking of what Alex said about stigma about what the trans people are supposed to look like, that was actually a big reason it was so difficult for me to identify with being trans in the beginning of my transition because social media, especially surrounding trans folks, it heavily portrays just skinny white twinks. So I was like, well, this can never be me because I'm not white, I'm not skinny, and I'm not a grunge person. So I think that's what people think when they think non-binary or trans, and that's they all look completely different. And there's also people who are trans but they don't want to socially or medically transition, and they're also equally as valid. So
I agree. I think the validity of just transitioning is people have this expectation that once you say you're transitioning, that there's an array of medical transitioning afterwards that requires beginning, middle, and end. And I think that that also comes in the form of how we present as well. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions and cause that confusion and make people feel like you're supposed to reach a societal standard norm or some kind of sense of communal normalcy based on what other people think is normal, not on what we experience as normal for ourselves. That's another thing too. So I agree.
That's when we were hanging out with my girlfriend's aunt one time for the holidays, and I was getting ready to go into top surgery, and then she had asked when you're getting bottom surgery, and I'm just like, well, I'm not. And I'm at a point I'm an open book, so I love to answer any questions I have. So I don't get offended by stuff like that as long as it's not coming from a place of malice. But it's just again, like you were saying, Angelique, there's no getting middle end. It's just what you want to do.
Sorry. I have airplanes flying over my head. I'm so sorry. I was like, I'm over reading and talking. But I think I love that. I think that's a great conversation point. It almost is big enough to have its own segment, I think, because a lot of people have these misguided misconceptions about it. And so
the stigma I want to get rid of is in general just binaries and assumptions. I always think of the perfect world I want to live in, and I always think of a futuristic utopia like a cyberpunk. Well, that's not a utopia, but kind of vibe where you can literally customize yourself however the hell you want. You're just a makeup of parts and vibes. And I hope to live long enough to see that someday, or be reincarnated to where I can be a robot with a detachable penis and some titties whenever I want. That's what I strive for. That's the perfect world for me.
I love that. I think that's dope. And to be honest, back in the early 2000s, you could modify your body however you want. There are people with cat faces, people with elf ears, people with vampire fangs. Back in the early 2000s, you could do whatever you wanted. It wasn't nobody giving an F about how you body modified. From your tattoos, people getting the carvings, anything you wanted to do to your body was your playground and you could do anything you wanted to it. So hopefully one day we get back to that with no judgment and no anything. And it's just natural to see people living their best freaking lives.
Absolutely. This wasn't what I was thinking of before, but if I had to change the stigma, I think it would be I wish men and women didn't think they were so different from one another. One of the big comforts to me when I was first transitioning was to find out how we develop as a fetus. That we're all technically born female first until a flood of hormones either determines that we're female assigned at birth or male assigned at birth. There's this huge gender divide between men and women where they think they're completely different. And it's just one of the things that made me really comfortable as well about made me feel more comfortable with my bottom half is that it is, I think the word is analogous with the neonatal penis. It's basically the same. It just didn't have that flood of hormones at, I guess, a pivotal time for me, which would have been convenient, but it didn't happen. So I just feel like it would be a lot of people would just be a lot less pressed about a lot of things if they just didn't think that men and women had to be this or that or fit into this box. I just don't understand. We are all so different. So many people have existed since the dawn of man. I wish that people didn't think that trans people are this new thing. We have been around since the dawn of man. Like trans people have existed in one way or another for forever, for forever. And just because we have come to a point now, like in the last 150 years or whatever, to actually medically transition and have our hormones and our outside appearance fit how we feel inside, doesn't mean that we are not real or that we came out of nowhere or that this is some new fad. I think another thing that people don't really talk about is that we have a rich and varied history. It's just a lot of our history, our books, our culture has been destroyed by things during the Holocaust when they burnt down a lot of our resources, our libraries, our books. So I wish people weren't so focused on man and woman, different concepts, because they're different. Don't get me wrong, they are, but they also are very much the same. And also the other thing, I just wish people didn't think that this is some crazy new fad because we've been around forever. Just because you didn't see us, just because you didn't let us be visible, doesn't mean we haven't been here the whole freaking time.
Listen, as a mixed person, I know for a fact that I've met white people who didn't know a Black person until they met me. I know people who literally had never seen or met a Black person, never seen or met, touched Black hair or been around Black culture, had no kind of connection to it. Same thing for Hispanic culture or things. So I know for a fact that it's possible that people never met a trans person. There's probably people who never met a gay person, not in person. We see inferences of it in television, TV, music, sound, all that stuff, but it's not the same, right? But I do want to say I had a funny thing to say about one of the comments you made about men and women not being so different. So when you get your bottom surgery, you go through the process and they tell you how it all works. And coming to find out that how they build it is the same way that it would have been built as if you had never been given that flood. I laugh and I now tell every straight man, whenever they make jokes and whenever they feel like they've won the upper hand, I would like to let them know that every time they've ever licked or sucked a clit, they now know what it's like to suck a dick. Thank you. Good night. It's really fun to say on the microphone when I'm at work and I'm doing things like that because I'm like, you know exactly what it's like, baby, and you be down there sucking harder than you would if you was a gay man. So I don't want to hear nothing about you don't know nothing or whatever. You've already done it. You didn't know. And every woman that has that same strength, you and your micro penis can go sit down somewhere. It's very that. It's putting people in that mindset and that level and letting them know that biology, science, and everything backs up my joke. I love that. I love being able to be like, you could be mad if you want to, but when you go home, you go and twiddle your thumbs and think about it. You might have to talk to your therapist in the morning when I'm done with you. It's cool. It's not a problem. But I think that that's the reality. And even for me, like when I got my transition, I thought it was so cool the way that it was redefined. So it is still a part of me. I didn't lose it. It doesn't get chopped off and thrown into some magical bin somewhere. It gets reutilized and everybody has that same cavity and those same things because our bodies are built exactly the same. Just the way that it fills out and the way that we grow from that first moment just changes. That's it. All the organs are still there. Everything is the same. Human anatomy is literally just either inside or outside. That's it. Literally inside out is the best explanation. But I loved it. I love this conversation. And I could literally talk to you guys all night long. Unfortunately, that is time. And I do appreciate you guys being here and for jumping in and for exploring these topics with me. I look forward to having you guys back in later segments. And thank you for being a part of Trans Awareness Week. Thank you for joining us. And as the transmasculine panelist, and then there were two. You're my survivors. You made it through the whole thing. Thank you so much. You guys have been awesome. If you guys have any goodbyes or any last minute plugs for you and your organization, now's the time.
Go ahead, Alex. You want to do the pitch?
Oh, about the Queer Trans Project? Yes, if you are somebody who is questioning your gender or who you are and you need resources, check out the Queer Trans Project. We give away gender affirming resources completely for free. And you can go to our website, go to Build a Queer Kits, and pick out how many items, 3 or 4 items that if you like, even maybe more. We have a few more. But if you think you have no community and you need to feel like you're, like the other day I was saying, if you feel like an island, trust me, you're not. There are people out there. We're just very spread out, but we are out there and we're here to listen to you and be your community and love you if other people haven't.
It's given Hawaii.
Ohana.
Yeah, good old archipelago. A bunch of little islands together, we make a mass. It's wonderful. But once again, thank you guys. Thank you to you both. Thank you to Queer Trans Project for being such a huge resource in the community. You guys are located in Jacksonville, I believe, but you guys help out everyone in the state of Florida. So thank you so much for all the work that you guys do. And thank you for your knowledge and your experience today. It's definitely going to help people. So we appreciate you guys. In the meantime, have a wonderful night and we will see you guys later.
Thank you. Happy Trans Awareness Week. And thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. This is amazing, Angelique.
Thank you.
This is awesome. All right.
And then,